I just want to start off with the latest. Can you just take us through a little bit about how today is going for you and how things have changed over the past 24 hours for yourself and, by extension, Highspots?
Well, we're in the middle of giving refunds to everybody, so, that's it's kind of rough, because although we've had a lot of good news in the last 24 hours with Marriott no longer holding us legally responsible for that six-figure debt, the fact of the matter is right now I don't have one penny returned back from all the money that I've laid out for the convention. Not one penny has been returned. We've had promises to have it returned, but in the meantime, I'm refunding each and every single ticket order that has come in. So short term, it's going to be a strain, but long term, at least the news is much better than it was last week.
So as we're speaking right now, which is on Wednesday afternoon, it's more money going out and still nothing coming in.
That's right. And you have to understand sometimes when you're dealing with bigger businesses that, they have accounting departments and we are probably a blip on their radar. So for example, the bus company told us yesterday, we're not going to be responsible primarily because of the governor's response saying you can't have more than 20 people, kind of makes it impossible to put 54 people on a passenger bus. So they conceded after initially not conceding that they would have to fully refund us because the scope of the contract obviously couldn't be met on their end. But they did say it's going to take 120 days for a refund. So, hopefully in 4 months I'll be whole, but right now that doesn't help. Same with Steinbrenner Field. We paid a rental fee to use their amazing facility. They've been completely impacted by the cancellation of Major League Baseball and all the events that were being held at their field, and like some of the other vendors and guests that I'm sure were using their stadium, they're giving a lot of refunds right now. A lot of ticket holders that had Yankee spring tickets, they're refunding all those. So we're in line. Could like a lot of other things be 120 days. I guess the last step that we're looking at is getting a refund from the live events place. I don't think they're going to give us much of a fight now that the decree is you can't have more than 20 people in a building. I mean, obviously we had plans to have more than 20 people at our live events, and they're unable to accommodate it. So, again, I'm sure we're going to get a refund, but they've had every single concert that was planned for the last couple of weeks, and everyone probably coming up for the next couple of months canceled. So all these businesses are impacted, as we are, and we're just going to have to work through it, case by case.
Is 120 days kind of the ballpark figure that the Marriott has also given you, or is there no time frame at the moment? So
the Marriott is a little different. The Marriott doesn't have our actual cash. So the Marriott was a contract where we ventured into a contract that said, hey, if you give our guest this rate, we promise to fill up your hotel. So it was a kind of a mutual beneficial exchange. It's the same type of scenario we do each and every year at Wrestlecon, where we try to negotiate a good rate for our guests in a hotel that's very close to our events. It's just nice. It's nice to have everybody under one roof. It's nice for them to interact with the wrestlers that we house there. It's just kind of a fun atmosphere. So we did that. We had a rate of $199, where if you look at until all this stuff just happened, $199 was a fantastic rate for a Marriott hotel in Tampa during WrestleMania weekend. And I think this same hotel was selling rooms outside of the block for $450 at some point. So, we felt it was a good deal. It was a good deal for the Marriott because they had a guaranteed, basically full house. And when all this kind of fell apart, they were just trying to hold to the contract. And they initially, before the number that I released online, the number was about double that because they wanted us to pay for each and every room, not just for their damages, which were the profits that they estimated to lose. So once we got them down to estimated losses, which were still a six-figure income, we kind of knew that we were getting closer to getting a reasonable settlement considering what was going on. We were just honestly waiting for something in Florida to become official from either the governor or local authorities basically banning the events that, inevitably everywhere has had those mandates, and Florida just seemed to be one of the very last people to do it.
When it comes to Wrestlecon and the associated events, was Was insurance something that was in place here? And is that another aspect that you're dealing with throughout all of this?
For us, the insurance wasn't a factor. If you read what was going on with South by Southwest, apparently even most of the event insurance policies specifically don't cover pandemics. So I'm not sure if we would have been in a situation where we had insurance if this would have been covered. It's certainly something that I'm going to look at for future events. But this is just a situation that I don't think anybody could rightfully have planned for. And I don't know of any case right now where people bought insurance that this will cover it. I'm not sure whatever WWE purchased will cover the losses that they'll inevitably sustain.
You mentioned their future events. This is not going to deter you from, at some point whenever normalcy returns, this is something that you do plan to continue in future years.
Well, it's a good thing that I have already signed a contract for Los Angeles, which I did about 2 weeks ago, because quite honestly, if I had not, I probably would have evaluated the decision to continue forward with this. This is certainly intended to be a profitable venture, but for the most part, with all the staff that we have to bring there and house and everything, it really does become very much relative to the work that goes into it, a labor of love. My staff loves WrestleMania week. I love WrestleMania week. We love being around the wrestling fans. We love meeting all the promoters that we don't get a chance to interact with throughout the year, the wrestlers that we, very rarely get to interact with. We're WWE fans. Certainly we criticize the product when it deserves to be criticized, but, WrestleMania is an event it's a destination event that we still love to go to. And WrestleMania week for us, Wrestlecon week for us, however you want to term it, it's just something that if you're in the wrestling business, we feel like this is just a place that everybody goes and congregates. I'm not saying that someone else might not replace it with something different in the future, but right now if you're in the wrestling business, you're a part of it.
If we had been talking on Sunday night before the location change for WrestleMania, what was the outcome you were most hoping for, and where would your spirits have been Sunday night before, the next couple of days were about to unfold for yourself?
I think best case scenario would have been a postponement. They would have stayed in Tampa and we could have postponed to a later date. But I completely agree with the decision that WWE made. It's very difficult considering the day-to-day changes that we're seeing for them to plan anything in a near future. And at first, I think the first rumor that we heard was in September, and we were pretty excited about that because I thought that was enough time to get over the pandemic, and then also enough time for a lot of people to recover financially to maybe get back out and take a vacation. Certainly, if the airlines were going to credit travel and the hotels were going to credit things, that September looked like a great makeup date. But then I heard a rumor about June, and I was like, you know what, if this thing's in June, I started talking to my partners, and New Japan has the Best of the Super Juniors final on that day. Tokyo Joshi, who's owned by DDT, has their biggest show of the year on June 7th in Japan. It's headlined by the return of Kenny Omega, who happened to be one of our primary guests. So, you start looking at all the pieces that we've assembled over the last year to kind of make Wrestlecon what it is, and the pieces just weren't there. Got very, very discouraged about the idea of not only putting together an event that wasn't up to the caliber that I wanted it to be, but also, in June 7th, even if this thing goes away in 2 or 3 weeks, which I think people are now facing the reality that it's not, the financial devastation that it's going to cause to the people that would be attending this event, I don't think is going to go away by June 7th. So I'm glad that didn't come to fruition. It probably would not have been feasible for us to reschedule for that particular date, but it is what it is. We're gonna look forward to Los Angeles, and I not to the same degree, but we've done this for a couple of years, and in San Jose, it was an unmitigated disaster for us. It was a just devastating financial loss. It was a complete waste of all the resources that we had put into it. And then the following year in Dallas, it turned out to be our single best year. So I hope that, a lot of the people that weren't able to do WrestleMania week when they realize what it is they're losing and not just taking it for granted. It's more than just seeing WrestleMania. It's about being around all the other wrestling fans that they probably only get to interact with on social media. That they'll want to make Los Angeles a destination.
Do you get the sense from other promoters that maybe you've been in contact with the last couple of days, that WrestleMania week, it's high risk but high reward? It's very lucrative for all of these companies. Do you feel a lot of them, they're going to be very risk averse when it comes to the next WrestleMania weekend, that maybe it's going to be a week that they stand out? Or like, give me a sense, it's impossible to guess at this point what a WrestleMania week will look like a year from now.
It certainly is hard, but I want to back up, and high risk, high reward is an interesting term, because with all the live events that happen, I don't think there was going to be a lot of high rewards. Certainly the premier events, the Joey Janela Spring Breaks, the Blood Sports, our Super Show, those things, because we've been around a while, and I'll even say Ring of Honor, even though I know their tickets were a little off. Those events, because they're established and they have a following, those I think were fine. But all these other niche events, including many of ours, the shows, I forget the term that we use a lot of times, but the stick shows that are, just like the Joey Ryan Penis Party or the Ethan Page Body Guy Extravaganza, the ones that are kind of like a tongue-in-cheek show. Those were not doing great in Tampa, and I think part of it is because of the oversaturation of the live events that were there. So, there's not this great reward on a promoter end like you would think, and where there is a great reward is, and this is who I feel the most pain for, is these independent wrestlers, that what they make in a given weekend down there is probably 6 months of regular bookings. And not only is it great for them financially, but, people judge the matches that they have that weekend. And I think there's a lot of guys that really elevate their stature from that weekend alone. And it carries them, further up the independent chain going forward, and then probably putting eyeballs on them for these companies that are issuing these contracts that make life very comfortable.
I just have two last things. I really appreciate the time here, Mike.
But before I interrupt you, because your other question on that was about how I think it'll impact Los Angeles.
Yes.
I think it's too early to say. I do. I think that Los Angeles could be significantly impacted the longer that this downturn in the economy, which we're seeing right now, the longer it happens. I think it's going to have a ripple effect. But I still think that there's lots of groups even on the West Coast that probably will get involved to replace the groups on the East Coast that were involved this year. So I don't think much is going to change, quite honestly, unless we see a longer lasting economic impact than I think anyone's expecting right now.
I know you guys mentioned that the whole social media backing that you received, which was extraordinary the last few days, didn't play a part in the Marriott's decision to reverse course. But personally,
I didn't say it. I had to make a statement repeating that they didn't factor that into their decision making. I don't believe, or did not say, that it did not have an impact.
Yeah, and that's good to clarify, because I don't think that could have been a non-factor in all of this, because it was overwhelming. And for yourself doing this as long as you have, how much did that mean to you to see some of these figures in the industry, some heavyweights that were weighing in? And really, this was not about any kind of promotional borders or anything. Everybody felt the extreme pressure that you were under.
It did. I have not had this many eyeballs on what we do in a long time. I had a lot of, not only people reach out through social media, but I had a lot of texts from friends that are now in, higher up places that I haven't talked to in months, that sent me encouraging notes, and, I appreciated all that support. It's been difficult, and, it's not just what we lost that weekend. There's the collective, and there's Wrestle Expo that they've had to postpone their events. I honestly, I'm not speaking for them. I just don't think they're in a position to give 100% refunds right now. And I totally understand that. As I explained, there's a lot of money that's out on the front end that, you don't get back until that weekend. And the timing of this couldn't have been any worse. This is devastating for us financially, even in the short term, to be totally honest with you. I took a $200,000 loan out just to fund the refunds. So that time people aren't waiting 120 days like I am to hopefully get paid back. I didn't want to put my patrons through that. It's not fair. I understand their frustration. I understand that a lot of those guys, a lot of people are international fans they're going to be suffering too. A lot of people don't have jobs right now or ways to make some income, and I didn't want to be one of the reasons why they were in a poorer position.
The last thing is you did mention as well the writs that you were dealing with. What is the latest there, and just an overall message you have for those that are out there, just to convey kind of what you're going through right now, because I think a lot of people have sympathy and understanding, because you've been very transparent throughout a crisis. I think we can safely assume like that is the best label for this.
The rich is the last group that I have not addressed in terms of what we're going to do moving forward. That being said, I don't expect them to give me a hard time. They've been very, very good to work with up until now. I think they just need to evaluate, legally what they can and can't do. I think that the person I was dealing with wasn't the owner of the building, so she had to converse with the owner and make sure that she doesn't do something that's contrary to what he wants to do. But the last correspondence I had with them was prior to the governor of Florida's decision to limit to 20 people. And I think that if they were in any way thinking of holding back a refund of the money, I think that would be a compelling statement as to why they won't. That being said, I fully expect that the return of the money from them is going to be very difficult, because they are in the entertainment business where all the money they have is from bands and events like mine using their facility. And as I mentioned earlier, they're probably not going to have a single dollar coming in for several months. And it's devastating for them. It was devastating for us. It's devastating for the independent wrestler that their only financial means is to do these shows that are obviously not happening. So if my message is the same message that I've been sending out through emails, is if you're in a position as a customer, as someone who likes independent wrestling, if you're in a position to give, please do. Whether you want to support us as a company, if you want to support a wrestler because you just happen to like that wrestler, if they tell you a story that strikes you, if you're in a position to give, this is whatever you normally give, this time means more, because short term everyone's going to be in a very painful situation, and I know there's a lot of businesses that are going to be impacted. So certainly don't put yourself out. If you're likely to be in an industry that's either in the short or as a ripple effect going to be impacted by this, don't take care of yourself first. But if you're in a position to take care of others, this is a great time to do it.
Yeah. And I'll add it in. If you have that income available and you're maybe at home, a lot of spare time, highspotswrestlingnetwork.com is where people can sign up. It's a fantastic streaming service. I'm a subscriber to it, and it's something that can obviously help during this time. And Mike, I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your very busy schedule. And I think it really comes through that your concern that goes beyond yourself right now to everybody else that's affected. And I think a lot of people appreciate that sentiment and how transparent you've been in this whole thing. It's affected everyone to varying degrees. And certainly, I think people are rooting for Highspots during what is obviously a very tumultuous time. So I just wanted to thank you again for stopping by and chatting with us for a little bit with an update.
Thanks for thinking of us. And I appreciate you letting us get our story out.